Welcome everybody to another Where is the Background? Here it is. Edition of Worcester Council Theater 3000. I'm
What's
Brian
up?
O'Donnell. I'm here with Bill Shaner and Brendan Melican. Gentlemen, how are we doing tonight?
Fantastic. How are you?
Just fine.
Just perfectly okay.
Just totally 5 out of 10, right?
Cromulent.
Well,
perfectly cromulent.
Not 5 out of 10. I'm saying 6, maybe even 7 out of 10, because I'm sitting in front of a bowl of Italian wedding soup that Katie made that I'm waiting to cool off, and then I'll be giving it a review. It's going to be 10 out of 10 stars. I know that.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about that. That rules. Brendan, how are you doing?
I don't have any soup.
Well, okay, 0 out of 10. Got it.
Yeah.
I just ate kielbasa, so
that's fantastic too.
Yeah,
you're gonna be farting. You got to get that gain structure real close to the face, brother, because you're gonna be letting some toots out.
You want to know my secret, Bill? I never stop farting.
ABF, I'll always be farting.
Yeah, no city council meeting tonight. Which is probably a good thing because they on the committees they're doing open meeting violations. Let's just state it plainly.
Yeah. Hi Molly. That was part of my work day today was rewatching the economic development subcommittee meeting from yesterday. Dreading it, not expecting there to be a story. And then all of a sudden, bam, hit with a pretty big story. The law department submitted amendments to the amended ordinance that includes some pretty sweeping changes. And they did that minutes before the meeting started. And then after discussing it for like an hour, the committee voted to send along those changes that they had just recently gotten from the law department, not 5 minutes before the meeting started. And it wasn't on the agenda and there was no public heads up. And I had to ask for copies of those. There's not even I have the only 2 public copies of these changes right now because I put them on my Google Drive. So I'll put those in the chat because you're not going to find those anywhere else. And that's heading to the full city council next Tuesday. So that's pretty either shady or incompetent, which is always the question in Worcester, right? Is it?
Why not both?
Right. And is it shades of both?
I'm very curious about. I mean, listen. I think two of the city councilors on that subcommittee have been city councilors for a long time. And so when something's not on the agenda and you're voting on it, that seems like a pretty big red flag.
It is one of the most basic parts of open meeting law. It's really 101 level stuff.
Yeah.
So I have this quote here. We don't need to play the clip right now, but there is some fun clips to be had from this, which I can pull up later. But George Russell, who's not on that committee, was being a pest about this rental registry because he's been a pest about it for forever.
Mm-hmm.
And he's talking about these new ordinances and broken clock is right twice a day type shit. He goes, if there's new information coming in, it needs to be vetted. I think we should have learned our lesson with this a couple of years ago. It needs to be made public, and then it needs to be discussed. And then Candy responds to that by just looking at the city lawyer and then saying, is it all right if I just read these? And then she partially read from the 2 new documents that the law department submitted. And that apparently counted. Because when they went to vote, she was like, all right, we're ready to approve this and send it along with the stuff that I talked about earlier. And then they approved it. So,
Bill, could you go over some of the changes that they made? I know I know Etel was good at putting some of that out there, but just in case anybody missed it, this is the stuff that they voted on years ago, didn't pay attention to their own vote, and then were horrified to learn what they voted on 2 years later.
Right. So a lot of this stuff has been sort of in the ether already. They took the inspection fees down, and the fine for not complying was changed from $300 a day to $200 a month. So that's now enshrined in this new ordinance. And then the big change, which is sort of like really renders the rental registry useless, is that there are exemptions for who needs to get inspected, and they changed that to include all 2-family and 3-family dwellings that are owner occupied.
Those are now exempt.
Those are now exempt. Yeah. And it used to just be that your own unit was exempt, and they changed it to the entire building is exempt. You don't have to even register if you live in the building. So it used to be that, the owner's own unit in a multi-unit rental property wouldn't be inspected, but now it's changed so that if it's an owner occupied triple decker, you don't even have to register it. So or a two family, like a duplex or whatever. So those are changes that literally were never made public. Like
right.
you would have had to be watching the subcommittee meeting yesterday intently, and then emailed somebody to get these documents to even know that this happened.
If there's any upside to that, though, it's the number of owner-occupied multifamily dwellings is so low in the city these days that it's really just the council acknowledging publicly that their constituency are old school townies. That's who they're listening to. They did nothing to actually hear any of the concerns, which were also invalid, but like the large scale developers and rental unit owners in the city, this will still impact them. So the majority of units, it seems, will go forward with what they intended. They just added a little bit of protectionism for the 15 people who they talk to on a regular basis.
The thing that is worse to me, more galling to me, is the inspectors part of it.
Yeah.
Oh, right? Yeah. I still need to sort that out. I don't think that like what's out in the ether is exactly correct, and how I understand it is correct either. But there was a lot of discussion about like third-party inspectors, and I need to find that in these two documents. I can't, because I don't have it totally nailed down yet. But yeah, if they're allowed to use third-party inspectors, it's just like, why even,
useless? Yeah, it's pointless.
Yeah, right. Yeah, why even like bother?
You'll see George Russell starting an inspection company.
Right. The meeting was funny because all of these like city councilors with tenants still don't know what the sanitary code is and how it's different from the building code. Like there were so many questions that just betray that they still don't understand that thing. And I don't own property, and I'm stupid, and it's easy for me to understand. So it's really revealing. Yeah, I can't find the third-party inspectors thing. So I'm not comfortable saying that that's now a change, but it might be.
There's something with it. There's something.
This whole thing is very confusing.
Yeah. And dumb and bad, but also illegal now because they voted on it.
That's never stopped us before, though.
Oh, also anything built after September 2022 doesn't get inspected for the first 5 years. So that's also pretty stupid. But
yeah,
they probably weren't going to inspect those properties. Those weren't going to be top of the list anyway. So
in a vacuum, that's like less like problematic to me because obviously, yeah, the idea being that new construction gets inspected and all that, but new construction is not good quality these days. So you almost it's terrifying if they're not they're not being looked at. And we also know that there's a backlog for inspections for new construction anyways, if I'm not mistaken.
Bill, have you heard any feedback from the Department of Inspectional Services? Their thoughts on the changes?
I have not. No.
I'm just curious. The third-party inspectors, if true, that's a big one, because it either. The only way I could read that is inspectional services recognizes their inability to hire staff, and they were thinking about contracting out inspectional services to begin with, because otherwise it's a private entities that already exist in ways completely unrelated to those. That's just normally transfers that you have inspections like that done on. The idea that they'd be putting it out to the private sector, it's really odd. That's just a really strange move.
Well, I think luckily we have somebody in the line who could maybe clear up this question for us. We have a very special guest tonight, here to talk about something totally unrelated, but we're going to pester her about it a little bit beforehand. And we have Etel coming on. Somebody want to throw Etel up on the screen?
Welcome, Etel, to the show.
Hey.
Thanks for coming on.
Hey, Etel, our District 5 City Councilor, everyone. Etel, we were just discussing, I don't know if you heard. Was there actually a change with these third-party inspectors, like being allowed to use third-party inspectors for the rental registry? Do you know this for a certain yet?
Yeah, it hasn't passed city council. So that was one of the things that came out of Mayor Carlson's chairman's orders. So she had about 5 or 7, and one of them was to outsource this to third-party vendors. So the way that this would work is this would be licensed inspectors, and even though they would do inspections, if city council or the manager agrees to this, the Department of Inspectional Services would still have to give the stamp of approval. And also, if there is a dispute, for example, if the third-party inspector finds something that Inspectional Services disagrees with, then that can be challenged. So it just creates a ton of work. And also, we haven't given this inspectional program a chance yet. So people are just freaking out for absolutely zero reason. And honestly, if we do need more inspectors, then there is a time and place to say, let's fund, 3 or 4 more inspectors. Let's learn from what the department needs, instead of just jumping ahead of people that are like doing this work for 20 years and saying, we know better than you. That's essentially what they're saying.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm hearing from landlords that they're, good friends with all their tenants and that there's no issues.
Speaking of landlords, I wasn't able to be there in person on Monday, but I did watch the meeting. And one of the folks that was crying and whining about having to register and inspect their properties was the guy who hired the subcontractors for 257 Mill Street. And so
the roof collapse.
The roof collapse, yeah. So I found it extremely funny, not in a not funny way, that the person responsible for hiring people and not doing its due diligence to respond to the tenants is now saying, please trust me, City of Worcester, because I can do a really good job with renting properties.
Right.
Yeah.
It's government overreach when you try to stop roofs from collapsing.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just un-American. Let the roofs collapse. It's a free market roof economy.
Yeah, right? People will figure it out. I mean, who needs tenant protections? I mean, what are these liberals talking about?
Right. If the roof collapses, the market spoke. It didn't need to exist, right? But Etel, we brought you on to talk about something else, something new and exciting, and I think that is going to be really good for the community. And maybe I'll just let you explain it and explain what it is, so that I don't get it wrong. Right?
Yeah, no, that's and thanks you guys for inviting me, because this has been a big highlight of this week. in light of what happened at Washington Heights. And I want to spend a little bit of time giving folks some information on that as well. So we can keep those folks in our minds as well. So if you all remember, a year and a half ago, I think it was just around this time, the 257 Mill Street building collapsed, and 100 and plus residents there were left completely homeless. Everybody has gone. The building itself, I drove by the other day, has been completely renovated. It looks completely different. And so what I learned from that experience a year and a half ago is that Red Cross couldn't help these folks the way that they are supporting the residents at Washington Heights, because this was not considered a fire emergency. And so essentially we had to figure out how to house, feed people, get them legal representation, all that stuff. And so I learned by working really closely with an amazing woman who no longer is for the city, the Deputy Director of Emergency Communications, that other cities had an emergency fund that mobilized in times of crisis like this and provided residents with a small stipend. Depending on the community, they decided how much money to give people. But in those first few hours or days, people need things like food and diapers and, all the essentials, right? And so I've learned from my work as a social worker and advocate that it's a lot more empowering to give folks cash and give them money and let them decide what they need versus, us deciding, here, use clothes or whatever. So I asked the city to set up this disaster emergency fund to particularly support any survivors of fires or catastrophes like the one on Mill Street. And we finally, in the last few days, the MOU between the city and the United Way of Central Massachusetts has been finalized. So the fund established at the United Way of Central Mass, and it will be kind of co-managed by the city. So an emergency happens, the city tells United Way, we have this amount of residents, and that will give them cash cards. So gift cards in the form of cash, so folks can use them right away. And so I'm super excited for that. The bad news is that we have no money. I made a donation just to start it. And I got a verbal agreement from a business owner that wants to remain anonymous for now to rally some folks and start donating so that we can start using it, unfortunately, the next emergency that strikes the city.
Right. So listeners of the stream will be glad to know that you have the opportunity to be the second, third, and fourth people to donate to the fund after Etel. And I myself am going to make a big donation, hopefully big, off the door money for the Worcester Sox birthday party on Friday night. So it's a $10 suggested donation for that, and all of the proceeds of that are going into this fund. I think it's a really good thing, and it's something that, like, I remember talking to you about Mill Street, like that sort of immediate assistance was like really desperately needed, and the residents were really, really struggling to figure out who to get that from or to get it at all. And then their landlord took them to court.
Right. Literally 24 hours after they were kicked out of their apartments.
Right. Right.
So I dropped the link in the chat there. I also made a tiny URL that'll take you to the same link,
awesome.
donation page.
Okay. Yeah. Because the link itself is.
Yeah. If
so that tiny URL will take you right to the fund.
Take you right there. And if anyone in the chat would like to donate, as a show, we're gonna try and match donations tonight. Anybody, if you guys send us a receipt, DM the WCT 3000 Instagram account with the receipt, we'll match it. I think we can do up to like 300 safely.
That would be amazing. That would put us at $500 if we're able to do that, right away. Yeah. So that's great.
So if anybody would like to get involved, like to donate, then please do so, because I think this is a great opportunity.
And the other exciting initiative that I'm hoping if I'm able to pull it off with a group of people is to have a fun event, hopefully downtown, in an area that people can access and have a big block party. So we can both raise awareness around how terrible it is that these things are happening, in light of also, ironically speaking, of the rental registry debacle that was created purposefully to help us prevent and at least find out where the problems are. So our firefighters don't have to go into buildings that trap them, and our residents don't die in the fires. So hopefully, if everything goes well, it would be awesome if we can partner together and try to see if we can put together a fun event that can raise some more awareness around the fund.
Oh, you got it. Anytime, anywhere. We will. I'm glad to help out.
Yeah.
And I see in the chat people are donating already. That's awesome. Thank you all.
Yeah, Brad and Eric, thank you guys so much.
Thank you guys so much for doing that. It's really so. Tell what other, like, what's the model for this? What other communities have something like this that sort of got you interested in taking this project up?
So there is in some places like in Leicester and in Framingham. In Leicester, for example, a woman I spoke with right after the Mill Street thing, she said to me that the city just did it voluntarily. So they had a group of people, business people mostly, that got together and they're like, okay, our residents need help after a fire, so let's keep this fund, well fed, so to speak. And it's really, basically, it's run by volunteers in Leicester. In Framingham, it's a partnership between the city and their United Way. I think Boston has it through the mayor's office. So there's different versions of it, but I think what's been kind of interesting for me to witness in the course of this, at least 2 events that have happened in District 5, is that oftentimes the city gets in, and rightly so, they don't have the capacity to manage crises like this for days at a time. So emergency communications gets in those first few hours, 72 hours, Red Cross comes in. And then there's like this vacuum where there's no one kind of picking up the pieces. So it's left to the landlord. And oftentimes we know if you end up having a good landlord, you're in good luck. If you end up with,
you cut out a little bit.
I'm not going to swear. If you're with, if you have somebody like the France, for example, then you're basically stuck fending for yourself. So in our community, really shouldn't have to bear the brunt of doing a lot of the work that's being done right now. So I'm hoping that this takes away a little bit of that, of the burden on us on the community front to have to worry a lot about putting things together.
This is a very good point from Epic Strain.
Right. Within yeah, right. And it saves you from having to do all the like groundwork of organizing this. Like every time there's an immediate need, like you can get like assistance out to people faster if there's just something that's set up and ready for it. And
it's really hard, especially if you. It's really challenging if you have, at Washington Heights, for example, we have 35 to 40 people that just are left with having to start from scratch. And so in those first few days, it's like really hard to connect them to Red Cross. So some people are connected to Red Cross, some people are not. Yesterday, I dropped off like 4 wheelchairs for people with disabilities that, they just put the word out there in the community through mutual aid. But that takes so much mobilizing and so much organizing that if we have these fires as we've had them literally back to back, it's a lot to ask of community members to constantly have to mobilize, like that, even though people never hesitate. Which, can I talk a little about the rental registry?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
So the thing that's really, what really bothers me too, and maybe I'll use the word scare. The thing that scares me the most about this debate around the rental registry is that after the Gage Street fires, where 4 people died because of a crappy landlord that literally had so many violations with the inspectional services that they spent copious hours and resources having to go back and beg him to fix this and fix that. And when council approved the original ordinance, so remember there's 2, there's the registry and then there's the inspectional one. Literally, no one said anything. No one said, I think the fee's too high. I think that the inspectional, I'm afraid that the inspectors are going to go through my underwear drawer and find weird things, or they're going to go under my mattress and find my diary, or they're going to find my secrets. Nobody said anything, right? We all were like, yeah, this makes sense. Please do inspect units, and please do register people so that we know who's owning the housing stock. So if God forbid emergencies happen, we also know who to contact. And literally 2 years after, because some people finally read the ordinance, now we are going back with crazy amounts of amendments that make absolutely no sense. So one of the amendments that scares me the most is the one that was presented to the Economic Development on Monday, and that is to exempt from both inspections and registering into the rental registry units of 3 buildings and below. I think I'm saying that right. And so when you look at these are owner occupied. We have about 4,000 triple deckers in the city. I don't know how many of those are owner occupied. You know why? Because we don't
have a rental registry.
Yeah, we don't actually collect the data. And so it's like I laugh because I really feel like crying mostly, but it's like, so basically, why did you vote to have a rental registry if you're going to exempt a large number of triple deckers, which happens to be where most vulnerable people live, because that's the most available housing stock. And so what the message that got sent yesterday is, we are going to trust the owner occupied units, landlords. By the way, we don't know how many of them exist. We're just going to trust that they're going to do right by their tenants. We're not going to even bother to keep them and hold them to the same standard that they hold other people who are going to register and do the right thing. And so why on earth would you even have a registry at this point if you are going to water it down so much that you're defeating the purpose of why the inspectional service was like, you guys need to understand we've been doing this work for 20 years, and the most problem properties we have are triple deckers. And that's the constituency that they want to exempt from this registry and inspections.
Equal protection under the law. Like, what are we doing to the tenants in those units? Just saying like, oh, well, we care about other people, but I guess we don't care about you because the person you pay money to lives downstairs. Like,
yeah,
because we're going to rely on them to call the city anytime there's an issue. If their landlord lives in their building, and we're going to assume that people know how to do that people will feel no fear of retribution, of rent increases or other threats.
They should fear that 100%.
Yeah. And that somehow that we're just going to leave it up to this nebulous amount of landlords that we don't know who they are or how they're maintaining their units to tell us that to trust them, basically. So the likes of Nadulka, like, I'm sorry, but I feel so uncomfortable and so scared to be able to allow that kind of wish-washing of this registry when we know, and like Yenny was saying too, the fire was causing an owner-occupied unit. Maybe that person wasn't responsible, but it happened.
And an inspection could have caught something that we don't know. That's speculation, but like that's what inspections are for.
Listen to you talk
train of power strips or whatever.
Go ahead, No. Listening to you talk just made me think of something that it might be helpful for you, Bill. I don't know if it existed in your time at Worcester Magazine, but I mean, that used to be a classic evergreen story in Worcester, going over the landlords who had the most reports on them in the city every year. Every year there was a long shaming list of, and hilariously, former city councilor Connie Lukes was like always on that list. But that was just a annual piece that you knew was going to come out when the inspectional services wrapped up their calendar year. the landlords who had the most number of violations and the most number of complaints. Obviously, that was a different time because I think we did have more capacity in inspectional services at the time to be out doing more actual hands-on inspections. But someone's still collecting that data. And Bill, I nominate you to be the guy to start doing that write-up, because I mean,
that's a good idea. I totally forgot about that. That'd be awesome. I'd love to publicly shame some bad landlords, and if somebody like say Candy Meadow Crossing's on the list, that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, Eric's question is a perfect one.
That is a really, really good question, and I hope people actually keep asking that, because some of us on council are held to such a different standard. One example of that is when I was working as a director of public advocacy and education at Central Mass Housing Alliance, and we were voting on inclusionary zoning. Some counselors who remain anonymous made a complaint that it was a conflict of interest for me to vote on inclusionary zoning, even though it had absolutely no bearing on A, the families that I served, but B, on me having anything to do benefiting from a policy that it was mediocre in the first place in terms of its related to the work that I was doing with homeless folks.
It's a conflict of interest for you to know what you're talking about.
It's a conflict of interest for me to know what I'm talking about, and actually draw a lot of this from that experience.
Yeah.
Well, my other question be besides, in addition to the conflict of interest part, about which also plays into, this idea that 2 years ago they were all for it, and then all of a sudden now decided that it needs to be watered down or changed enough to effectively be watered down. I wonder how much of it is that they realized how much it would personally affect them. But I also think that probably the more likely scenario is that the political realities of it came to bear, and they realized that a certain amount of their constituency was going to be very mad at them for enforcing this rental registry. And at the time, maybe some people were actually doing the right thing or were moved to do the right thing, and now are afraid of what that means for their political futures, and that's gross. So
yeah, Brian, I had the same thought, and I think that with the rental registry, what we're seeing in the past, like however six months, it's been like this issue after it wasn't an issue since it got rolled out. It's like legislating by what the guys at Honeydew are saying, right? It's legislating by way of what the old men at Honeydew are saying. I think George Russell might have even said that in the first time he got mad about this, that like the guys at Honeydew were giving him shit for it. But like I don't know, it's pretty obviously those kind of people that are, and that's why it's making them backtrack, but they're just not embarrassed about backtracking either. And I don't know. Yeah.
I think that the thing that we saw some. Oh, is there a lag?
No, you're good. You broke up for a little bit, but you're good now.
Okay. So one of the other things that I've noticed, like just a very noticeable pattern on council, is we saw this with the ADUs, and we saw part of it with inclusionary zoning. So if you remember, inclusionary zoning got delayed a lot because hearings weren't happening, and so a lot of developers, rightly so, if I were a developer, I'll probably do the same. I'm not, and I never will be. But they rushed to get their applications in so they wouldn't be subjected to inclusionary zoning. So now we're left with 4 projects that will be subjected to inclusionary zoning. But if you remember, both in all the hearings and the city council meetings, we had upwards of 100 people that showed up with stories, with just talking about their struggles with rent, with being able to live in the city. And not a single counselor, other than myself and maybe Councilor Rivera at the time, and Councilor Nguyen, or maybe Councilor King, had anything to say pushing for some of the amendments to make the ordinance stronger. None of these other folks who are so aggressively going after a modest rental registry program and what, in my view, should be a mandatory and more frequent inspections program, none of them had anything to say. Then the ADU ordinance rolls around, and the planning board said, hey guys, city council, we think you could make this stronger. So why don't you remove all of the obstacles that you're putting in this ordinance, and why don't you just make it stronger? So no owner occupied exemptions. You can have this in all parts of the city. Trigger warning in single family zoning areas. And these folks went so rabid against having all these exemptions, right? The same pattern of things that we're seeing now. We don't, we're going to burden people. We're going to have a massive amount of ADUs. Massive investors are going to come into the city, and they are all going to take over our housing stock. Literally, Salem has had the same ordinance for 5 years or maybe more, and they decided that they wanted to make it less restrictive because they had maybe 5 or 6 ADUs in the city, because they they realized that this is way too prohibitive. And now we have the rental registry, and after 2 freaking years of having all these details, having briefed, I have been personally briefed, and I know for a fact every city councilor got briefed by inspectional services and the fire department, and they both said, hey, we need to have this done. We have the documents that were given to us, that were discussed on council, and yet here we are 6 months after. Let's just completely undo all these things when they directly affect the lives of tenants.
Yeah, and the tenants don't really get brought up.
No.
The conversation has been very, very focused on the burdens of landlords.
The thing that's just so wild too is that, I mean, it's all the arguments against changes are clearly designed around some form of protectionism, right? Like especially revenue generating systems that have existed for years in the form of property ownership. But Etel, even if we went all the way deep into, like, let's just say someone waved a wand and made like single family zoning go away, and we built millions of units of housing starting today, right? Like nobody would like, it would take a generation to see any impact on actual price decreases of rents and what have you that would actually impact current property owners, because it would take so long to actually get the units on board. We're so far behind the curve, not just in Worcester, I mean, Massachusetts in general, but Worcester in particular. We're so far behind the curve in construction of new units to begin with on any level that there's no conceivable way that anyone would be harmed financially in their ownership stake of properties, which is that's the part that's just so grim, is that it seems like we have a lot of landlords. Maybe they're just instinctively protectionist, but it's starting to seem that there's a lot of people involved in business models that don't actually understand their own business model. It's like we've gone from, 2019 being like an expensive city, but not like a crazy expensive city, to now we're having 2-bedroom apartments going for $4,000 on Green Street. And that's fucking ridiculous, right? Like that is so absurd. There's most major metros in the United States, like you're not touching $4,000 for a 2-bedroom apartment. But yet the locals actually think that the changes that we're making are going to break their backs and financially. And that's the part I can't wrap my head around, is, we're really just stalling getting any sort of meaningful development at scale done on any reasonable timeline, and for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah. And I think for Massachusetts, it's 200,000 units that we're behind. And the majority of them are units that would be, housing extremely low income folks or low income folks.
But I mean, that's 200,000 units to get us to where we need to be today. I mean, just the law of exponential numbers says tomorrow that number is higher, and a year from now it's substantially higher, and we're making no ground whatsoever. We should always be at minimum. We'd have a 10% overhead in terms of the housing, the units of housing that are available at almost any price point, and we're decades away from seeing that.
Yeah. We're decades away from seeing that for sure. That's why tenant protections are so important.
If we protect tenants and we let people do ADUs, then like
our character of neighborhoods changes.
Mo Bergman might not know his neighbor's name.
Right?
because you can't talk to renters.
Listen, if you want to choose to live in a renting neighborhood, that's fine. That's totally fine. But he chooses to live in a no renting neighborhood.
It's a lifestyle.
Yeah. So we didn't bring you on to like put your colleagues on blast or anything, but God,
Okay.
that comment that he made about how it's like a choice to live in a single family neighborhood, like a consumer choice and not just the reality that your socioeconomic circumstances afford you. That was so crazy.
And unfortunately, that's a very prevailing view of how people see renters and why renter protection legislation is so hard to pass at the state level and at local levels, because unfortunately, the big corporate landlord lobby has poured millions of dollars to try to defy some of this both affordable housing revenue producing bills, but also just renter protections in general, because they say renters are already very much protected in the state of Massachusetts. You can't evict somebody very easily.
Right.
So,
I wonder, Etel, what you think of the idea that Massachusetts, there's like exceptional sort of regulatory capture, maybe in cities and in the state for developers, because it seems insane to me that we have a Democratic governor and, Ed Augustus and our city manager towing this line that there will be a trickle down effect if we like give developers all the tax breaks that we possibly can. That's how we get out of the affordable housing crisis right now.
that's been a wild. Yeah.
It drives me crazy. It's like that. It's literal Reaganism.
But this was like the stuff, Bill, that we started going back to the last. We really got into the weeds on this when the housing market collapsed back 2006, 2008 is when that, like, with those tools really became put to use in a major way. I think it speaks to, on the city side, just what I was saying about landlords, that we have a lot of leadership in the city and in the state who don't understand the markets that they're participating in. In the wake of a housing collapse, like there might be an argument to be made when nobody was developing that offering temporary tax breaks or incentives may have been a way to kickstart that marketplace, but they weren't used effectively in that way. Now that they exist and people got used to rolling them out, it's just kind of the norm. It's just taken for granted that, like, yeah, you go to Worcester Develop, they're just going to give you this. It's not hard. Like, just ask for it and they'll give you a handout. But it defeats the whole purpose. It was an incentive. I mean, literally an incentive to get people to develop at a time where before quantitative easing had really began on the federal level, and lending was super, super easy and super cheap. It was a way just to kickstart the economy. And we didn't use it that way because we only started seeing development over the last 10 years, not the 10 years prior to that.
Etel, so, I mean, I really think that you were right on the nose there with this sort of like pattern of reactionary blowback and anger to like every change that gets put on the table. And that's not like unique to the, I don't know, 7 or 8 city councilors that like are the face of that. Like that's something that's like sort of like deeply felt in the politically engaged community here in Worcester. And like you have to talk to a lot of people in your job, and I wonder if like, how do you try to explain stuff to people who immediately go to that reactionary, it's going to ruin the neighborhood sort of thing? If like, is there a way to, have you figured out any way to break through, or is it just impossible? Because I haven't tried it all. I've just called them dumb and like written them off. But like, if there is a way, I would love to hear it. you know?
So I've had this conversation with some of my colleagues who, for example, have been harassed consistently when they try to develop permanent supportive housing, right? We've seen those kind of reactions, and I have seen them, and in my professional job, I've done this as well. Taking the time with a lot of empathy, with a lot of active listening, with a lot of, let me hear why you feel this way, and let me just tell you that best practices say this and data shows this. No, your house value will not go down because you have a shelter near you. It just literally not, it's not factual. Let me show you the data that says that. And I have found that especially housing and homelessness, as we've seen, and now apparently bike lanes, have create such a visceral reaction in people that that conversation can just not go past that wall. I haven't been able to successfully find a way to do that. I don't think you can do that with certain groups of people who I think are very much married to the idea and to the fear of anyone who doesn't look like them or doesn't feel like them, who doesn't mimic their socioeconomic status. You can't undo that kind of inherent fear that people have. And so I've tried all sorts of methods. I've tried anger, I've tried frustration, I've tried listening, I've tried empathy, I've tried compassion, I've tried all of that. And so have my colleagues. And we're not able to break through some of this stuff. Like when people start questioning data, not even like anecdotes of stories of people that had lives have been saved, for example, by some of our interventions, I don't really know how else you can go break through that post-factual politics and mentality. It's so deeply ingrained.
Right. It's almost like city council is like sports if the athleticism was that sort of inherent reactionary anger. Like it's like that's like it's just a forum for people to vent that more than it is like the executive body of the city of Worcester, you know, like
yeah. We saw that with Mill Street too.
Yeah. But Mill Street with the bike lanes or the roof collapse?
The Mill Street with just the redesign, it's just really hard to have those conversations with people because they're convinced that their viewpoint and their experience is a certain way, that there's nothing that I can say to change that emotional reaction. So I don't even know how do we then convince 10 other people, who may not be experts in the stuff that Steve Rowley and Todd Corain and their staff are so good at, to say, we can't undo something just because you feel a certain way. Like our experts here who've done this professionally, and that's literally their day job and their night job, are telling us that we can't revert back, because if you revert back Mill Street, you're essentially saying everything else that is under the purview of Complete Streets will be scrutinized by people who are not professionals. They're not professionals. They don't do this work.
It's very insulting. I can't imagine what it's like to be someone like Steve Rowley or even honestly Eric Batista. I'd actually like to pick your brain about that for a second, but like to just have like someone like George Russell who clearly didn't read anything about this rental industry, and just like asking these like inane questions that they have to like trot up to the podium and answer, and he just doesn't listen. It's like there's certain counselors that do that all the time, and a theme recently has been like Eric Batista being sort of kind of good on stuff and just catching a lot of crap for it, which I would say is a different dynamic this term than last term. And I'm wondering if you have any observations.
Wait, Bill, before we get into that, can we just take one moment to meet Brendan's dog?
Oh, yeah. Wow.
He looks very mad.
It's a smoky eye that she's got. Yeah, this
She's
is
smoldering.
It's June Carter Cash, newest addition to the family here. Yeah.
Amazing.
So I don't know how we manage, but it's like literally the calmest. She's like the calmest dog I've ever met. Like super chill, like loves people, like loves kids, other dogs. Like, yeah, this is just her all day long.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
June Carter Cash. Welcome to the
6 months old. Theater. Came in from South Carolina as part of a litter, was fostered in Charlton for a couple months. And just took her home Thursday.
That's great. Congratulations, Brendan. You're a dog dad now.
Sorry, Oliver. You're out of the family.
Yeah. Get out of there.
It's June's house now.
It's June's house now. What were we saying?
My internet.
About Eric.
Oh, yeah.
Can we get to an emotional support?
Yeah. I was the changing
I
dynamic.
have a cat. She's my support.
Well, I didn't know you had a cat. You got to herd that cat up in front of the camera.
Yes, the boys and I got a cat 5 years ago.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome.
It's great.
Yeah. So what was I had a good question for you, Etel.
You were talking about Eric
Clearly
Batista.
not
Oh, yeah.
cooperating with me.
The change in there she
I
goes.
had to.
She's still in here.
I lost I didn't hear anything you said in the last 5 minutes.
That's okay. We'll just wait for a spectrum to stop having a seizure, and then we'll get back to it. No, I was going to ask.
Yes.
It seems like Eric Batista is taking a lot of hits from not from the other side of the fence, shall we say? Like maybe last term there was like more push to do progressive things, and he was in the way of it. And in this term, he's doing some things that are pretty good, and he's getting a lot of crap for it from our more conservative counselors. And I wonder, like, just seeing that in person, how you feel about that emerging dynamic.
Yeah, that's been fascinating. There's been times where I have felt as though he gets treated very differently than his predecessors. I said on the council floor this last time that I have zero issues disagreeing with the city manager, with this one or with the other one, but I will work with him if he's working, in the right direction. And on Mill Street, he's done really good. He's supported his staff and their vision. He literally got all of the department staff to show up to a Vision Zero event so he can get buy-in from everybody. On the rental registry, he supported that vision. I went back and watched a video from Public Safety Committee in 2017 when the Complete Streets policy was approved. So that was Councilor Rivera, Bergman, and Councilor Toomey. And Eric was like right there with Steve Raleigh at the time, and just talking about complete streets and how this is a good thing for the city. And so he's been consistent on a lot of things. It's just really disheartening to see the reactions that he gets from people. And I feel like, I said this, one of my comments the last time was that I feel like people question his integrity more than they do Ed Augustus or Mike O'Brien before him. And, I have followed and witnessed city council for a long time. And I never remember people on council, like Connie Lukes would go after Ed, but the majority of folks were very deferent to him, and they never questioned his decisions the way that they question the current city manager. So there's definitely times where I feel like he's so frustrated and he can't say anything. He's also caught up in this weird dynamic now where, the majority of council is telling him to undo good things and to revert good things back. And, he can say no, but politically that's a tough thing to do when the majority of council says, hey, I want you to go in a certain direction. Just as I advocated for when Councilor Nguyen was working on the crisis pregnancy, I was one of the first people that said, hey, we told you to bring the ordinance back. Like when city council tells you something, you follow that direction. And so it's tough to see him in that tough position right now.
Yeah. I personally, I don't know if you could pass this along to Eric for me, because he probably, doesn't really like me that much at this point. But I really think that he needs to start calling these people's bluffs and just being like, you don't like what I did, find a different city manager, right? Because that's kind of the only recourse you have in our system is contract. You really don't have like a lot of the norms of Worcester politics and the city council are built up on just like assumptions. Like if Katie Merrill Carlson assumes that if she complains in public, that somebody will make it whole for her, right? But like you don't have to do that. There's no ordinance. So I don't know. I kind of would like to
remember that these are the same folks that said we should not have a city manager search.
Right.
That's what I wanted to say, is that it's fun. You know, we were, as a show, I think, very much of the idea that whole thing was bungled and done poorly. But as far as being in the position, it's a guy that has continuing the work that he did before he was in the job, you know, when he was deputy. And it's so funny how, the same people that refused to just go through with the search are now refusing to abide by their own choice. And it would
or give him the opportunity to, and his staff the chance to, prove. I mean, I don't think they need to prove. Like, how do you prove complete streets? It's like,
until you do them.
Weird, right?
Yeah.
It's just such a weird way that they're doing, but
it's very strange. It is, when Bill's talking about like calling their bluff and things like that, and it would be terribly ironic, I think, if this was the thing that, this was the guy, this was the time that they decided to call his bluff and to, exert that control, that the one control that they have, seemingly. It would be a very, very, telling and strange situation after, all the, frankly, much more damaging city managers we've had in recent decades.
Yeah.
It will be interesting to see the eval, which is coming up, I think, in very soon for us.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. I thought that already happened.
No, we haven't done it yet. Mm-hmm.
That's historically like kind of a show trial, but this year might be interesting. But correct me if I'm wrong, there's no formal process for the city council to like set benchmarks or expectations for the city manager, right?
Definitely no formal process. The eval is supposed to kind of be that tool, but the tool we have is just really unprofessional, in my opinion.
It's like
really
a teacher's rubric, right? It's like a 5-point
It's
rubric.
Teacher's rubric. It's like you need to pick from 1 to 5, and some of the goals and benchmarks are already set for you. So you I don't know, like they pick from the strategic plan. So the way that, I did it the last time is I just talked about stuff that mattered to me as a district councilor and some of the things I was expecting him to do this term, and kind of like touched on broad themes. Some people went, it was a weird process. It's a very weird and very unstructured, unhelpful process.
So excited for that.
Etel, have you found anything in your time as a district city councilor that is not a weird process? Like, just surprises with something that you've just been shocked by that is like, oh, this just makes so much sense. I'm glad we do it this way.
Oh boy.
No, you don't think about it. It's okay. You don't have to. I've actually been, one of the things that ran in parallel, at least timing wise, if memory serves, when you folks first discussed the rental registry, which did get a lot of attention and seemed to be somewhat related, was from the assessor's office, the plan to start doing aerials for assessment.
Yeah.
When is that supposed to be coming back to the council? Because that was the one that, like, it when I say it ran in parallel, it's like there also seemed to be this weird sense of paranoia that was coming from no reasonable place at all. Like, this one, the rental registry, was about the fear of inspectors coming in and, I don't know, like bringing the FBI with them. And somehow George was convinced that flying drones over the city was going to allow, I don't know what was going to allow. But yeah, is that going back now?
It might
we were gonna,
allow for people to find out.
Sorry, Tom, what were you saying?
So I had that in my committee. When I was chair of the Urban Tie committee, the assessor that came to our committee, it's just basically like software. They had a demo for us that goes over, like, takes a snapshot of an aerial view. And if someone has, for example, like a patio that they didn't get a permit for, or a
so hypothetically,
pool,
like Atumi's pool and deck, that is
or a secret pool or deck,
Yep,
or
gotcha.
somebody left their diary outside and they freaked out. like that would just help the assessor be like, I don't have extra hands to go to every single apartment and assess properties, so we're going to use this software. And some people literally freaked out over that, but that was approved already. We approved that.
Well done. Okay,
it's basically a subscription. Yeah, hopefully they won't undo it, because I'm sure the assessor is going to be really stressed out about that.
You know, that's actually, I didn't know you approved it. And now the Vietnam style ghillie suit camo all over George Russell's backyard, sort of protecting it like he would a helicopter. It makes a lot of sense now, actually. I thought that was weird. And maybe he watched Apocalypse Now and he was like really digging it, but it makes a ton of sense now. From the air, you couldn't see anything going on there, so. Plot spotter.
Plot
spotter is a good pun. I love
That's funny.
Yeah. Oh man.
One thing, Brandon, one thing that's been very weird for me, among a million other things, is the way that we pick our streets and sidewalks. As district councilors, we have the blessing of, right? Of like making determinations of issues and topics that I literally have zero training or desire to be trained in. But as an incoming person, any incoming counselor will know this. You are given a list of, in your district, I don't know, I'm going to exaggerate, but 800 streets that you need to pick from. And these are the streets that get picked for resurfacing. And then there's also like a number of sidewalks, and they give you a certain amount of money. It's like $1.2 million for streets and maybe $800,000 for sidewalks. And then you're supposed to go through that list and determine what street do I pick and how does the math add up? Because some streets are like $600,000 to resurface, some are $400,000. And how do I know which street like actually needs remediation and which not? And like, I was flabbergasted my first year to be like, you want me to choose?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, you literally want me to be in charge of which streets get resurfaced? How?
I never thought about it that way before. That's like literally you couldn't build a better board game for nepotism. Right?
I was just going to say, Bill, that's another project that would be fantastic, and I would love to help you with that too. But to match up that must be a public document that must be somewhat accessible. The wish list from the counselors, and marry it up with density of voter registration.
Or even just like data mapping donations.
That's what I mean. It's just like you see where support actually comes from in regards to the $1 million that's thrown out.
Wait a second. They've resurfaced Clark Street 3 times this year. Jenny.
Jenny had the fortune of having the former district counselor pick the streets before she got in, but she'll go through that exercise next year. But the weird thing is like, when DTM took over the process of like managing streets and sidewalks and things of that nature that fall under their purview, the first question I asked them, I'm like, can you tell me as a professional, how do I make this decision? Like, they're like, there's no process. You just look at the list and you tell us which ones you think should be resurfaced.
That's so wild.
Yeah.
It is so wild. And so I'm like, can you give me an index? Like, this street is really bad. This street, like, and so they had to go through that process with me personally. I'm sure probably, hopefully with others, but that's how I was like, I have some objective criteria I will choose. I will definitely not try to pick the streets that I get most complaints about, because I don't know if that's true or not, or if people are just trying to get their street, repaved when there's a million other needs out there. So that's been a very weird process. Very strange.
It's very interesting to think about. I mean, I'm sure that there are certain city councilors who really enjoy having that power and like making those like petty little decisions that, they can hook it up for, somebody and seem like awesome and then ignore other people with impunity. And I wonder, what a fun thing, not to put any ideas in your head, but a fun thing that a city councilor could maybe do, this term would be to propose that the DPW takes that job back over. Surely there's some sort of software and expert analysis that would lead to a better dedication of street repaving resources than, 5 lawyers and real estate agents who get elected by like 5,000 people each. I mean, like, surely there's got to be a better way, right?
Sure. There's got to be a smarter way than allowing people like me who have zero expertise in this area having to play engineer with streets. It's just it was very, very stressful for me.
It's a credit to you as a person that you found that stressful and you weren't like, ha ha ha, look what I could do now, right? Like, I feel like
it's very stressful, yeah.
I feel like there's a certain personality type that really seizes on that sort of
right. But also there's a certain personality type that would be wouldn't force them to answer those questions that you force them to answer about, like, what should I choose? What criteria should I use? Some people are just too passive and might just kind of let the chips fall,
Yeah. And people think that, like, we have this infinite amount of resources that somehow, like, I have the power to pick 5, 7, or 6 streets that each cost like $800,000 to repave. And it's like, I didn't even know this, but they give you a certain amount of money per district. And then you're supposed to choose from streets, like Yanni was saying, some streets that have been petitioned since the 90s. Petitioning since the 90s doesn't mean the street is in bad condition always. It just means that those folks knew how the process worked, and good for them. Like, they leveraged that. But it is a very discombobulated, very unobjective process and very, very stressful.
It would be fun polling. Definitely a total waste of real polling resources, but to get a real poll done on how many Worcester residents know that they can do that, right? Like, know that that's how it works, and like know that if they want a better sidewalk or street on their road, that they have to like get their name in front of their district city councilor. I feel like almost nobody, like very few people.
Very few people.
Yeah. Which makes it really cool for the people who do, right? It really is just
people who know the process, right?
You couldn't invent a better board game for nepotism than that. And it's crazy, I always notice that the sidewalks and streets outside Pat's Towing they're so nice.
So crazy.
They get repaved every year. It's really wild. It's like, I don't know why the sidewalk outside of a towing company needs to be that nice, but good for them,
Weird.
I always just figured they did it themselves. And maybe they did in a weird way. Anyway, Etel, are we punishing you right now? Are we taking too much of your time, or?
I am so conditioned to Tuesdays talking about these topics that this feels very normal to me, except that awesome. I can actually say things without feeling very agitated as I usually feel.
Just bang I gotta get a gavel here so I can bang it.
We should
when you or two start talking, I'll just Let's see here. What else has been?
I have an interesting thing that I don't know if folks followed during budget hearing, but last budget hearing we had a very robust discussion on how unsafe City Hall is, and for just us as city councilors and staff. So there was some talk about some councilors are feeling as though it's just very unsafe. I have never felt unsafe, even when people make up names like Haxhiaj Highway or Hajiji Highway, or
the Haxhiaj Highway. That was so cool.
Like that. Like, and I'm people have SOAR counselors and stuff, but I have never felt physically unsafe. So there's 3, sometimes there's even 4 police officers with their guns outside in the hallway during city council meetings. And I would rather not have, police officers at the meeting, but whatever, they chose that a long time ago. But somehow we've now delved into this conversation about needing more security measures at City Hall for some reason. So I don't know what that means. Does that mean metal detectors? Does that mean more police officers? Does that mean, I don't know. It was just a weird conversation at those last council meetings.
That was at the last budget hearing? Okay.
That was last budget hearing, yeah.
I watched the police budget hearing and then I tuned out after that. I am going to guess how this conversation went, okay? And you tell me how far off I am.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about how this happened. Mo Bergman brought it up. Kate Toomey said that it should go to public safety. Donna Calorio said something weird and sort of related. And then no one made a motion or formal request for a report or anything. The conversation just turned elsewhere.
You were 99% right. So that conversation happened maybe like 5 months ago when this came up. Yeah. Somebody did ask for a report on how we can make the City Hall safer and folks feeling unsafe. So it was just a weird thing. Like I just can't imagine.
Can you imagine being the staffer whose desk that arrives on? You're like, I have to write a report on how to make Mo Bergman feel safer. Like what?
It was weird. It was weird. So somebody asked, I can't remember if it was Tu or I, but at the last time this came up, and I think Councilor King mentioned something too. We both were like, have we had like a serious incident that we don't know about? Like, did anybody with a gun show up, and did something happen? And there was really no there's nothing that has happened other than people all of a sudden need to have more security at City Hall or some form of. So. Yeah,
that's
it's a money play.
Yeah, right. It's a money play. There's a couple more details, That's weird. So where did that come up during the city manager's budget or the city council's budget, or which one?
I believe that came. It was towards the end. So I think that it was the city manager's budget.
Okay.
So they did have a consultant come in from Homeland Security and have a conversation with them about stuff.
What? What? They had a consult with Homeland Security about Worcester City Hall?
Or somebody that worked for Homeland Security, yeah. To advise them on a potential plan for. I just don't know. Like the gross thing about why this is triggering for me is that back when, if you all remember, before the Black Lives Matter protests at City Hall, there was one time that somebody, Gaffney, had put in a resolution for supporting the police it was like a resolution on acknowledging Black Lives Matter. And then either Gaffney or someone else was like, well, we can't say that. We need, Blue Lives Matter too.
Counter resolution. Yeah.
And then right along that, I think that month or that year, there was a lot of stuff Turtle Boy was doing to incite a lot of racial animosity in the city, particularly with North High and Mosaic, who got targeted a lot. And so there was a time when there was so many folks of color that came out, mostly Black folks that came out to protest at City Hall, that I remember this conversation happening, not specifically about security, but people freaking out because they saw a lot of people of color at City Hall. And, and I'm like, why all of a sudden, like, are we feeling like who is feeling unsafe at City Hall that we need to have extra measures, and why? Like, why? I just don't understand like what's triggering this kind of weirdness around the security thing.
Credit where due. During that period of time you just described, Etel, it was Rick Rushton was the only counselor that actually stood to his guns and did the right thing all the way through. I mean, I think a lot of folks weren't familiar with names like Anthony Petrone from the the Sergeants Union and whatnot, folk that made himself famous with their Facebook group and whatnot.
Hey!
But
That's
it was
a good Democrat.
But it was years before that. He was one of the people that came in to demand that they had a Blue Lives Matter movement and whatnot. And again, just point out, because I feel like there's plenty of questionable things that Rick did over the years, but he also did a couple of things that really always stood out as doing the right thing, and that period of time was one of them.
I remember that. I think he was the only counselor that supported Sarai at the time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that very vividly.
Yeah, that's great. That wasn't that long ago, and like
no.
It would be that's so I don't know. It's a sign of small progress that if they try to do that today, it would be a huge deal, and it would be deeply unpopular. But so I mean, like I think that's like that's a good thing, but extremely low bar, you know.
Extremely low bar.
Extremely low bar.
Yeah. So that just I would encourage folks to keep an eye on that. I think we're supposed to get a report back with some of the recommendations. And I think that the anxiety that I have is if these recommendations lead to things like making the public feel more unsafe in terms of adding, more things that make people feel unsafe, then some of us are going to have a big issue with that, especially if we start spending money on stuff that we need to spend elsewhere.
Everyone who comes to comment gets patted and frisked.
So,
that's interesting. That's very interesting.
I think, one of my boys needs my attention. So I'm going to dip out, but I just want to tell folks, please, if you can, 3 things to remember. We have a bike ride on Mill Street this Father's Day. If you can make it at 10:30 a.m., there's going to be a free clinic for bikes as well. So that would be at the parking lot at Coles Park. And we're going to go down the Haxhiaj Highway bike lanes. So if you can attend, that would be really awesome.
That's
and then
great.
Highly recommend people come in person and testify on this coming Tuesday on the rental registry. The shot spotter will be on the agenda, the expansion of shot spotter requests, and then obviously Mill Street. So if you can spend some time in person at City Hall, that would be the night that I would do that.
Just don't make anyone feel unsafe.
Don't make anybody feel unsafe.
Etel, will Fred Nathan be on hand to hold helmets of bike riders if necessary?
Somebody pointed out that to me, and I completely tuned it out, but that was hilarious. Was that you, Brendan?
Oh yeah, that was me. Yeah,
that was the biggest
power
move I've ever seen. Yeah.
That was too funny.
Well, I couldn't hold my motorcycle helmet and address the council. That'd be wacky.
Fred had an issue with an immigrant woman.
You don't say.
Governing City Hall at one of my neighborhood meetings. So he and I have a fabulous relationship.
I'm sure. Etel, thank you so much for coming. And one more time, the Worcester Disaster Relief Fund, is that the official name?
Worcester Disaster Relief Fund. Yes, you got it.
Worcester Disaster Relief Fund. The tiny URL will take you right to that. It's a new thing getting started. So thank you so much for not just coming on, but for spending so much time with us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks all.
Thank you, Etel.
Talk soon.
We'll see you soon. That was so awesome. That was great.
Yeah, that was amazing.
We thought she was just coming on to tell us about the fund, which again everyone should donate to. And she gave us a huge scoop on the street paving thing. That is, I think most people don't know that, and that's incredible.
No, I know. I have that written down, like future story. Got to do something with that.
Yeah.
That would be to get the data for the story that I'm thinking would be difficult, but it would be really interesting to see like 2 maps laid over each other, one of where the campaign donors live and 2 of which streets get the most attention.
Yeah.
Because that's like such a clearly rigged game, you know? But yeah, Etel was great. Totally didn't expect her to stay on for an hour, but that's awesome.
No, that's amazing.
About a bunch of cool stuff, and thank you everyone who's already donated.
Yes.
To the Worcester Disaster Relief Fund. It's cool.
And again, a few people have tagged us in stories already. Send over the receipts to at WCT3000 on Instagram. And we'll match. I think, like I said, I think we can do $300 safely just based on our show revenue. But we'll do as much as we can.
And then
at least that.
And then if you come out on Friday night I put the flyer in here because I was prepared today, but now it's awkward because I can't find it. The Worcester Sox birthday party, Redemption Rock, Friday, 6 p.m. We're going to have Christopher Barge will be DJing. And we're taking suggested donations at the door. And after this flyer was made, we decided that all of those donations are going right to the disaster relief fund. So it'll be great to cut a nice big check for that if people show up. So come hang out.
I think we decided that there was a huge conflict of interest and that it was, it was particularly ironic in regards to the fact that some of those same people that have conflicts on that are hyper vigilant about other people's perceived conflicts of interest.
Yes.
That aren't seemingly actually.
That was also an interesting scoop. Because there's a big difference between George Russell being like his money is made off of renting properties out to people.
Right.
Like it's like that's his job.
Right.
Or the value of properties as a broker.
Right. Exactly. He has such a vested interest in stopping the rental registry to the largest extent that he can. And it's, pretty crazy to just say, oh yeah, he's totally fine to just have whatever. We should just listen to his opinion about it and not be skeptical of it at all.
Right. And he's allowed to single-handedly hold this thing up for like 6 months.
Right. Ridiculous. So yeah, I think that was an incredible conversation about all this stuff. We got more than we thought we would. And as always, Etel is a huge help in kind of breaking a lot of this stuff down and explaining her version of it, her vision on it. And that was great.
There's definitely just one of the best, most active, most influential and effective people in the city. And it's the sheer ability to just get anything done in this like system that seems like designed to make sure that nothing gets done is like really, really impressive.
And one of the few people that truly does not compromise her values. Yeah, that seemingly makes no like calculation of like, well, this will be bad for my electoral career when deciding what's the right thing to do.
Yeah, just so rare to see somebody do the right thing in public.
Right, and I'm not saying the only one. I mean, like obviously we've had other people like that before. We have people now, but just it's exceedingly rare. In this city, seemingly, especially. So credit where credit due always, whenever we have the chance.
This is an interesting question here from Camber. Oh, not that one. Is there anything actionable to do with Binyenda and Russell, both conflict of interest cases, ethics commission? You can file a complaint. And that's basically all you can do. But it'd be cool to get an opinion on it.
Can we just run through what Benenda's conflict of interest issue is?
So this is it's so funny to try to describe in like a sentence.
With a straight face.
With a straight face. Maureen Benenda's daughter works in the Worcester Public Schools. Yeah. Right off the bat, right there, you're already getting into conflict of interest issues when you have the parent of somebody voting on budgets and stuff. But Binyenda takes it so much further than that. If you were to total it up, I would say half of Binyenda's complaints, motions, orders, actions on the school committee so far have had to do with the alternative school, the Gerald Creamer Center.
Mhm.
And that is where her daughter works specifically. And every time she talks about the situation there, what needs to change there, she says, you know, teachers in that school tell me, blah, 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 X, Y, Z. And something has to change right now. Her daughter works there. I was like, this isn't like, you know, a rumor. I confirmed this. Her daughter works at that school. And it's like, even at the budget review last week, it was like every other question out of Mayor Banana's mouth had to do with the Gerald Creamer Center. Like, she's very obviously trying to hook it up for her daughter, and she's not hiding it. And like, that's fucked, you know? It's the school committee is crazy, dude.
Yeah. We've had, I mean,
Everything
we've
is
had
crazy.
we've had a crazy month, and obviously they were off for a while and all that, but we're going to get back to covering it weekly because it seems to be getting absolutely psychotic in there. Just like we thought it was going to. Well, you know?
Yeah. I watched the budget portion of the school committee last week, and all-time Hall of Fame Diana Biancaria moments in that one. Really, really cool stuff. She tried to make a wicked aggressive power play, cutting $500,000 from the superintendent's like direct budget. It's like the budget for her salary and like a couple other people's salaries, and put it towards more Chromebooks and school supplies for kids. And when she was asked to like be like, okay, you're cutting $500K from here, where are you putting it? She just tried to say like in a variety of places, right? Like, yeah. Like for Chromebooks, I don't want or need. Like, she literally brought the education technology guy or whatever up to be like, okay, how many Chromebooks do you need? Like, while she's trying to figure out where to send the $500,000 that she's cutting from the superintendent's budget. And the technology guy was like, you know, you're putting me in a position where I'm having to tell you that I don't want more technology. I don't need more technology. I wish this money would be spent elsewhere. Like, I should be advocating for all the technology in the world, but like, I really don't need these Chromebooks. She was like, okay, put $30,000 to Chromebooks, you know? Yeah.
I can't hear you.
It was all a pointless exercise because it got voted down, but Binyenda and Kathy Roy voted with her, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then just the shitty part about it though is that the way it got covered afterwards, it like, Biancaria was like the protagonist of the story. Biancaria tries to invest more money in school supplies,
right?
Or was like the lead, and that's just not at all what happened. And it's just you kind of see how like the shitty like towny consent factory gets made with that kind of stuff.
Gross.
Yeah, very gross. Very gross. Yeah. So, and Biancaria, she kept saying that she works in banking, which I want to like. She was like, I know how to do this. All right, I work. Yeah, like, I don't. Does she like?
Yeah, banking's famously financially sound these days.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
they're just crushing it. Definitely not going to close a bunch of them this year because they made fucked up decisions on real estate.
I didn't hear about this one. Asking about getting therapy dogs for the schools. She did open up her remarks on Thursday complaining about school liaison officers and how they're being cut from the budget, but they're not even in the budget. Like, the police department pays for those.
Right.
And it's like, it was very funny that like her first comment about the school budget shortfall was
not about
cops aren't getting enough money, right? And then she tried to cut $500,000 from administration.
And listen, like I think from everything that I've heard is that people are not psyched with the superintendent on certain things right now, and that there are some huge differences of opinion in within like the education community in the city. So I think there's an important discussion to be had about priorities and methods, management styles and all that sort of, all that stuff. But, like that Chromebooks aren't the issue. School liaison officers aren't the issue.
Dogs
And
are, I know it's shocking. Dogs are also not the issue. And all the times I've been paying to public education, not once have I said, you know what we need is more pets. It's just never been in the cards.
Yeah. It was a really cynical bullshit move, because what it does is, in this time when tensions are running high and we're talking about something that's sort of hard to understand, like school, the way that schools get money from the state and from the city and divide up those resources is not like the easy stuff to understand. We have people getting really mad at the administration because they're looking at, shitty things happening in the district, and that's understandable. And then into that tense moment, you have Biancaria throwing this bomb of being like, look, the majority of the school committee voted against giving you guys school supplies, right? When it was just an irresponsible, shitty cut that would have done the district no favors whatsoever.
Right.
So it was a really shitty political move, and it made things worse. And unfortunately, we're not going to be able to have the real discussion about tensions between administration and teachers, because we're stuck having this discussion about Binyenda just thinking that she's better.
Right. Because that's really the bigger divide, I think, even amongst teachers in the city, is, do you like Maureen Binyenda or do you hate her? And that sucks up all the air.
Maureen Binyenda is taking a pension right now. Do you know that?
Yeah.
While actively being a superintendent for another town.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting, completely legal. Courts have already heard cases on this, but really interesting loophole in the way superintendents function after retirement. When you retire as a superintendent, you're eligible for your pension. MASS, the Mass Association of School Superintendents, is then allowed, you can work through them as a contractor for temporary roles as superintendents elsewhere. And it is very much a form of double dipping, but it's one that the courts have looked at a number of times. But because MASS is the outlet by which the paychecks come when they're working under contract after retirement, it's not an ethics violation or traditional double dipping. But yeah.
So it would be an ethics violation if she were to take a full-time job.
If you are paying, I think if you're working directly through a district, I do think that has been ruled as you have to pick one or the other, and put your pension on ice and continue collecting years as opposed to collecting the pension. But it is not uncommon for superintendents to be working after they retire, again, just in this contract role through MASS, where the communities pay MASS hooks them up with the superintendent, and MASS ends up paying the superintendent for their time. It's a really, really convoluted system, and it's one that could only happen in Massachusetts. And a part of it is because our entire pension and OPEB liabilities sort of structure is so antiquated and in need of an update. At no point in time was anyone thinking of that sort of loophole ever coming into play.
That's so sick. That whenever you have to start your defense of something with it's completely legal, right? You're not doing something good, right? And yeah, I think that I haven't written about that yet, but I want to, because I think it's.
I can talk to you about it more offline. I have some firsthand experience understanding how that system works.
That's actually the best explanation that I've gotten for that so far from anybody. So yeah, thank you.
And it does. I mean, the argument is that it saves the district a lot of time from doing a search, doing all the work that would go into hypothetically hiring a superintendent, because they can put that responsibility in the hands of a private entity, in this case being MASS, who kind of does all that work pro bono, for short dollars, because they do have a roster of active and retired superintendents who are always in some capacity looking.
That's so fucking crazy. I'll be back in a second.
What a crazy, crazy world we live in.
I mean, I was actually just thinking too that like how weird it is when someone was asking about ethics violations and reporting them and whatnot. Part of me feels like the best reason to do that is just so we can find out that, like, nope, the really shitty way is the right way to do things. We were all wrong. Like, let's move on with our lives. Because yeah, it's just fucking grim.
It's all grim. I don't know. I'm feeling very jaded lately.
It's like, if it's just all a grift, then why wouldn't you be grifting, right?
I mean, that's kind of what I mean. Yeah, I mean, when you look at the rental registry stuff, like, I'm sure there's no part of George or whoever else that owns property that thinks to themselves at any moment in time, should I even be a part of this conversation? Because for their reality, like being a landlord, owning property, that's just a normal thing that you do. It's like paying your city taxes. That's just the world that those folks grew up in.
Yeah, right.
They're totally blind to the reality that on the outside, some people are looking at it sideways. And it's why they can call out perceived conflict of interest where it doesn't exist, because those universes are just so foreign to them. The idea of working in social service, like taking care of people, you must be on the dole, like right here, somehow on the tape.
Right. Yeah.
It's just like upside down town. It doesn't make any sense.
Right. And if you think about that mentality towards public service in the way that I want to write an entire book about the Townie Jobs Cartel, Ray Binyenda pulled off like an elite level move in the context of doing the Townie Jobs Cartel. Like that was a real power play.
Yep.
To be pulling in 170K from the state, flat. What's the stipend for a school committee? It's like
15, 20,
something like that. 15, 20 from the school committee, and then whatever East Hampton's paying. Like, wow, you really figured that one out. Good for you.
And this is why it starts getting so obvious why Kat's like just staying in her universe, like why the Ray Mariano crowd like will fight for this stuff tooth and nail. That's all they have. That's the literal value they brought to the program was offering jobs to people at a time, going back to when Massachusetts had double-digit unemployment. And like that really made you powerful, like being able to offer people jobs. Like it must be so confusing for the current generation of wannabe grifters that like, wait, we've got 4% unemployment. How am I supposed to do anything meaningful with this? Like, thank goodness for my $1 million worth of roads I can hand out every year. What else would I have to offer?
I know. I'm so excited to dig into the games played with the roads.
That's so, yeah.
I feel like that would be really illuminating for people who don't pay close attention to this stuff. It's like, want to know why your road hasn't been repaved? You should know a city councilor personally.
You need to be a developer.
Yeah, right. Try donating to their campaign. Yeah. And also doing the landlords with the most reports thing. I'm not sure if there's like a place where that's public, like easily accessible in a database, but
that's a records request.
Records request, probably. Yeah. So I'll have to put that in, but that'd be a really funny, like full stream for this program. Just go through that list and like individual reports and such.
And follow up with tenants. I mean, I'd be happy to hop on the phone and see if anyone wants to come on a stream and talk about their actual experience placing reports with the city.
Oh my God. Just like cold calling tenants and being like, hey, this is Worcester Council Theater 3000. We have a report about your landlord. Can you tell me how you feel about your landlord? And then just let him talk, right?
Yeah.
That would be amazing. We'd probably get in a lot of trouble.
Again, just thinking back though to the way that WOMAG used to do it. I mean, if I'm mistaken, you can find it in their archives and correct me. But it's
Yeah, because
that is a big part of what they did was, the follow-up with the actual tenants to talk about living conditions, which is not dissimilar from what I think recently the closest we've come is seeing complaints regarding the Worcester Housing Authority. And
Right.
say what you will about the Worcester Housing Authority, I'll probably say worse. It seems to be working because the Worcester Housing Authority is starting to make massive investments in property upgrades and whatnot because they don't know what to do with all of the complaining. Yeah, there's some value there too, other than just pointing out that we've got some really shitty landlords who are actively engaged with our public power structures.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, and all the credit in the world to like our friends like Nelly Medina who have like taken organizing, tenant organizing, kind of from where a very a much reduced place to where it is now, and
she's been on that for years and
years. Yeah.
I wish there was more of a robust infrastructure for tenant organizing in Worcester, like there is in other cities, but it's just a hard place to organize, I think.
Bill, do you think that is it Worcester or is it Massachusetts? I get I'm not familiar enough with what the landscape looks like in Boston, or Springfield or Lawrence or any of the other bigger cities. I'm just always assumed that it's the way Massachusetts is structured as being kind of hostile to tenants, even though we think that we offer all the protections in the world. That has resulted in the lack of tenant advocacy.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, Boston is always going to be different than any other city in Massachusetts because it's bringing in people from all around. And like the activist network and shit is way more robust in Boston than Cambridge, Somerville. Anywhere, it's going to be anywhere else. I mean, comparing Worcester to like a Springfield would be interesting.
Yeah, I have a hard time imagining Mayor Sarno being like super responsive to tenant advocacy groups. But
yeah, right. Yeah, I severely doubt it. But like Worcester also has WAFT, or the anti-foreclosure team, which is like a standout model for how to do that sort of work. So but they don't. I don't know how much tenant advocacy they do. But they do a lot with the foreclosures, and Grace Ross really knows that stuff.
Yeah,
dude, Wang Wang is great. Dude. Have a great time at Wang Wang.
There's a 90% chance you see Joe Petty at Wang Wang.
Is that his joint?
He like lives there.
Really?
Oh yeah.
That's awesome. He's just posted up at the sushi bar. More sake. Let's go.
Bring it.
Did anybody touch on the locked up seats and tables on the common the last 2 days? No, I haven't heard about that.
No, I've been around. I wanted to ask you guys if you had heard anything about that, but I didn't think that we would have.
No, I haven't been to the common. I'm sure they'll get unlocked,
It was probably whoever's in charge of actually locking and unlocking them was mad at somebody and decided to lock them up, and just no boss has paid attention or no complaint has come through yet.
That's true. So you know what we could do, guys? Since we had Etel on, and we talked about all of these ghouls getting in the way of rental registry and ADUs and all these things. The meeting yesterday, the first 20 minutes of that featured a couple real standout ghoulish landlords. So we could watch a couple of their commentaries.
I'd love to watch that.
Yeah, let's do it.
I have it pulled up actually. Let's see here. We got to start with the one that Etel was talking about. That was directly responsible for the Mill Street roof collapse, because that's, keeping that in mind and then hearing what he said is perfect. A lot of just landlord looking people, Yes, here we go.
Wow.
Yeah, freaking dark David Lynch.
Hello, friends.
All right, I tried to play it. Let's see.
Is that the same family that owns the ice cream
My
shop
name's
down on
Mike
Lake Ave?
Maduka. I'm a landlord in Worcester. I'm also a business person
Oh, is
in
it?
Worcester.
They
And
got
I
other
just jotted
troubles
some
if-
things down so I wouldn't forget them.
How's the audio mix here?
It needs to go up a little bit.
Stream of consciousness. Okay, so Candy, I met you, Madam Chairman, I met you at a fundraiser down at the Busy Club for Shrewsbury Street, and you said to me that this was done because of the firemen that died in a fire. And then you also mentioned about balloon construction. Well, I don't know what you tell somebody who perished in a fire. What you said, what do we tell their family? I have a son who's a state trooper. If he pulls a car over on 290 and somebody picks him off, what's somebody going to tell me? How about the contractor that was working on Grafton Street? I think it was Amarello. He jumped in a ditch to do something and it caved in on him. What do you tell their family? What do you tell the realtor who gets raped showing a house? What do you tell these people? This is the vocations that we take. I'm a contractor, I'm a realtor. What do you tell people like that? It's the vocations that we take. What do you tell the lumberjack who gets hit by a tree? What do you tell their family? Everybody, there's an amount of risk with every job that we take. What are they going to tell when
It's
my
from the
hand and
economic
son
development
goes off and
meeting
gets
last
a helicopter
This is
down?
economic. Yeah.
What do you tell these people? You tell what you've always been telling these people all the time. Maybe what you tell the firemen is that the city didn't give them a lesson in balloon construction. Most three-deckers that I've been in all my life, I was born in a three-decker, they're all pretty much built the same. They're all pretty much look the same. There's the kitchen, the bedroom, the bathrooms, the pantries, they all look the same. We teach them what they look like. That's what you tell them. And then you also mentioned something about illegal bedrooms. And in the same breath, we say that the tenants won't allow you in, you don't have to go in. Well, if the tenant has an illegal bedroom, do you think they're going to let you do the inspection? Anybody want to answer me? And the other thing is the inspector who quit. Christian King asked them a couple of times, how many, what are they, the 110 inspections? I don't know the name of those other inspections.
This guy had a few
He asked them
pops
on
before
numerous occasions, how many, is it the 110 inspection? How many 110 inspections were done?
Put on an
Nobody
undershirt.
gave him an answer. He's probably still scratching his head trying to find the answer, Christian King. Is it the 110 inspection? Am I talking about?
What are horseshoes?
Inspections
Are there
that
horse
were supposed
socks?
to be done that haven't been done. But you haven't even finished half the stuff that you started. And I'm going to talk about Holmesfield Park.
Oh, this is great.
Holmesfield Park,
This is a
I've been
great
saying
exchange.
they never finished the lights. The bolts are sticking out.
Mr. Maduka, I would ask you to keep your comments to the rental
Well, this is
registry.
part of it. This is
It's-
part of it. You're not
Again,
finishing.
Holmesfield is not part of the rental
Well,
registry.
people are complaining on 311 that the bolts are sticking out and it's a hazard.
So
They put
again,
some-
that's not
they
on
put
the
some cones.
agenda.
I'm just telling you that the
It's
city
not
doesn't
on
finish
the
what they start.
agenda This evening.
The-
Happy to discuss Holmesfield at any time.
Okay,
except
well, let me
for-
bring it back
we-
then. Let's take Holmesfield out of the
Look at
picture.
Jenny. Poor
You
Jenny.
haven't finished what you started. You haven't finished the 110 inspections, but you're starting a new inspection. And that's the point I was making with Holmesfield, because there's a hazard up there that you haven't finished. You haven't cleaned up the city. There's garbage all over. Across the street from the schools on Belmont Street, it looks like a pit. How do these kids come out? They're supposed to understand how to keep the city clean when they come out and it looks like dirt. The money that you
You
grab,
couldn't
and
write
this is
this
just
dialogue,
another money grab.
Right? Like the best writer in
I'm
the world
sorry
could
if I'm not
write
politically
this speech.
correct, but this is just another money grab. Three-deckers have gone up exponentially in the last 5 years. A $250,000 three-decker 5 years ago is now $750,000. The tax rate is crazy. You're grabbing all the money. What are you doing with that money that you got to grab $25, $25, $25? Where did all that money go? With the extra $500,000 in value over the last 5 years, where is all that money going? What are we getting for it? Nothing.
Sell.
Lower Grafton Street is like Belmont Street. It's a sin. All the 3-deckers there. East Middle should be brand new with all the 3-decker money you're getting from the last 5 years. It's all 3-decker.
How long is this?
Nothing. They get nothing. I got kids, they don't even want to go to that school. And they're in my neighborhood. And the registry, you got to address. You want to know my name? I own 46 Ancona Road. There's 2 apartments there. Why do I have to register 2 apartments? You know I own 46. You want my name and number? I'm on 46. I got a 3-decker on here, Harrington Way. I own the whole building.
These are the people
Why do I
that
have to register every
control the
unit
city
there?
council.
You need to not get in touch with me. You get in touch with me. I own a property on in the WPI area. When there's a problem and the kids throw their mattresses
I liked it
out,
when I asked
they have
Etel,
no
like,
problem
have you
finding me.
figured out a good way to
They
talk
took
to
me.
people
There
like
was
this?
they took me to
And she was
court.
just
They
like,
found me and took me to court because some
There isn't a good way to talk
fell
to people like
in the woods off of Harrington Way. It's in the woods. They took me to court. I got to court and they said, "Oh, we're not going to take you to court." After they put me through all the aggravation.
I don't want to
he
get dark,
said,
but
the guy who that can't give the answer, he quit.
This is the same guy
Where is he?
whose son killed his wife, right?
And the last time we were here,
I don't know,
Same
Brian.
adult
That's what I was trying to figure out when I asked that other question. It can't be though.
The price of a 3-decker in
'Cause,
Worcester now at
man.
probably $750. Everybody's a good landlord.
Jay
Everybody's
Pryor.
getting $2,500 rent. There's not a lot of junk anymore. This isn't 1985 where all the 3-deckers look horrible and got lead paint coming down. We've had a lot of progress since then. Most of the 3-deckers are nice.
I can figure
Most
out right
of the
now.
3-deckers, because they're so valuable and they're being sold and people are buying them, they're fixing them up. Oh, now I'm all worked up, but I want to thank you for hearing me, and I'm sorry if I.
I'm looking up
insulted
whose
anybody.
campaign this guy donates to. Let's put a pin in this for now. I'm looking up whose campaign this guy donates to, and that'll give me the answer of that incredibly dark detail you just introduced.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry to bum everybody out, but that feels like the most pressing detail when it comes to,
Yeah.
talking
Yeah,
about
so-
this guy.
So Michael Medilka contributes to Joe Early, George Russell, Kenny Merrill Carlson, George Russell, Kenny Merrill Carlson, Joe Early, George Russell, Kenny Merrill Carlson. Not insignificant amounts of money. $500, $100. That stuff adds up. I'm gonna keep trying to figure out if that's the case.
I have no idea.
I don't want to totally.
And then I'm not saying that it has any bearing on it, but it's just like, come on, man, like,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
there are important things that are at play here as far as taking care of people.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that I feel like you should have an informed response to that, if that's the case.
It's safe to say that yes, that is the guy. That is the story. I didn't know about this story.
It's a horrible story. It's
Terrible.
an awfully sad and tragic story. This is very much has to do with the young man's mental health crises, and it's awful.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying, in no way am I trying to say, obviously not trying to make light of it or to say that he's not allowed to speak on any or whatever. Not that. I'm just saying that you would hope that somebody would have a more trauma informed response when it comes to the seriousness of this thing, and trying to make this stuff only about your bottom line in your pockets is really disappointing and sad, and
Not great.
Awful.
Dang. Yeah, that's fuck. That's making me feel all sorts heavy. I was wondering why you guys weren't having as much fun. I was like, maybe this just isn't as funny as I thought. But knowing that that's what you're thinking about the entire time, man, I don't want to watch that again. Fuck. Yeah, you'd think, right? And it, like, just opening that up with like, yes, firefighters fucking die, so what, right? How dare you make me pay $25, right?
You're right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's him opening with that stuff is really what put me there, as far as like being like, well, this is a massive bummer, because it feels like, yeah, dude, like, you shouldn't be so flippant about people's deaths, and you know,
dang,
yeah, hey, go get some ice cream, everybody.
Oh, this guy's good. We need a palate cleanser here. This guy.
Correct.
Hold on. Let's get a cue up here. This guy is flying an upside down American flag somewhere on his property for a cert, for an absolute cert.
I agree with everything that's been said so far. I'll try to keep mine brief.
It's Andy Serrato.
I look at these gentlemen.
Who's that?
He owns
here. Their business.
The Serrato signs down off of Pleasant Street.
Could
On a
you
small business. I'm
please
sorry.
state your name?
Yeah, Andy Serrato, 1 Salisbury Hill Boulevard, Worcester.
I've spent way too much time in the wrong circles.
Also previous
Clearly.
owner of Serrato signs. Again, it's another tax on small business in my eyes. When I sold my business, I used that address for my properties, my LLCs. I came down to the assessor's office. Got
How many LLCs do you have?
Changed them all, brought them in. My first set of taxes come in, there's 2 missing. I went down, they claimed they didn't get the 2, they changed the 2. My water bills end up going to my old address. I called the treasurer. Oh, you need to call the water department, have them change it. So now that I'm learning is each department runs independently. In a city of this size, how it does not have software program, that all these departments.
Because you donate and vote for people that refuse to fund these offices.
You mentioned at the last meeting.
Anytime we want to spend money on things that help people, you guys balk.
That have this program in Massachusetts.
We turned the state of our sidewalks into the nepotism Olympics.
There was 3,000 returned envelopes. Again, I think you can find out what the problem was with those envelopes, why they ended up getting returned. There was, over the years, I know that there was inspections done. I had a poor family years ago. I did get a notification, paid for an inspection. My next door neighbor, there's 4 3-deckers. It's owned by Worcester Common Ground. A few years back, I'm looking and these trucks pull up and trying to figure what's going on. I called the person who runs Worcester Common Ground. Oh, the city's coming and doing an inspection tomorrow. So they basically went through, cleaned up the yard, cleaned up the hallways, washed everything up to get prepared for an inspection. So I don't know, by doing everything we're doing here, what it's going to resolve, if it would save somebody's life or not. When it's getting fixed for the inspection,
sorry, I was eating a meatball.
Back just the way it was.
The balls to think that any of this is relevant or interesting to the matter.
It's just another tax that you're putting on a small business owner.
Like,
and less than 26.
Anybody could possibly care about that story.
350, and the city needs to get up and date and have one system that all the departments have access to. Because they have my information, but I have to run around and fix something on one simple change of address.
You want one system?
Thank you.
With your information where it's easily accessible?
Some sort of registry.
Yeah.
And what would you use that for? What kind of properties? This is a perfect example of what my brain goes to every single time. every fucking time that somebody tries to do something to help people in this city, dickheads like this come up and they go, why would you do this? How could you possibly do this? And obviously their reasoning is because they don't want their fucking money to get fucked with. But
right.
Their stated reasoning is, how could we trust you guys to run this? You guys can't do anything correctly. Look how complicated and convoluted and how messed up everything is. But every single time somebody has the gall to say, well, yeah, then we need to put some more money, some more investment, some more money into systems that actually help the city run more smoothly and effectively and make things more, ease of use for everyone involved. The same exact people are shocked, chagrined, offended by it, do everything in their power to stop it. And I don't know if they're being cynical, they know what they're doing, or if they don't have any fucking clue what the disconnect is there. Because
That's an interesting question.
It's so obvious to me. Sure, things don't run very well in this city. Do you know what we could do? We could invest in systems. And if we refuse to do that, but at the same time, throw every single solitary extra cent we possibly can into just police, no, towards nothing really, just police.
Right.
How do people square that in their pebble brains?
It's so stupid.
Yeah, that's a super interesting question, because so many of our quote unquote debates in Worcester go back to that, and no one bothers. It's never about policy. It's never about the facts or thinking about systems or trying to make anything better. It's just the gut reaction to something rubbing up against your entitlement to
right.
And I don't know, man. Does it go back to Reagan or whatever? Are we just living in the wake of that for forever? In the 80s when they were the government only gets in your way, and so you can just, I don't know, man.
Yeah,
it's an interesting thought. But
that's just fucking bizarre, dude. I mean, that was just listening to a guy asking for the thing the city is trying to give him, except he only wants it for him, doesn't want it for anybody else. It's it's just a classic zero-sum game sort of problem. They're no, we need to do this, but not for those people. It can only benefit me.
Just so I don't have to send in my address.
I want to save 25 cents on a stamp for my water bill. That's way more important than the potential of people not dying.
Yeah, let's play that last little 30 seconds again.
Department runs independently. And the city of this size, how it does not have software program, that all these departments can't tap into one system to find out what's going on. There's something drastically wrong. You mentioned at the last meeting,
That's it right there.
We're all in agreement.
Yeah.
You're all in agreement, brother. Yep. That's awesome. That's so cool.
But it doesn't matter anyways, because the amendments that they voted on weren't introduced on the agenda, and so they were illegally voted on, so everyone in that room is going to jail. So
they're all going to jail.
Don't matter.
There's definitely going to be consequences for that.
People are getting, no one's going to brush under the rug and ignore it.
No one's going to just ignore it until it goes away or anything.
They were given those amendments by the law department after the meeting started.
Yes. Hold on. Let me retrace this in real time. Let's see if I time stamped the moment that they got those amendments. 29 is the end of public comment. Let's see here. Maybe they say it right off the bat. We'll see.
Is there anyone online who would like to speak?
Yes, sir. We ask nonprofits to pay their share of water bills and tax bills.
Blah, 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 blah.
The colleges, the university, they tend to be for their license.
Is there an overt moment where they hand them out?
Council Bergman is
no, but Candy says it.
There was a document that was given to the
might be right here.
council in regards to the constitutionality of those inspections. So at this time, I'm going to
Constitution, which was
that mean to a landlord who owns a piece of,
enforce the ordinance through the housing court to gain entry, but there will not be entry into a unit without consent. And we've provided a draft consent form to the committee tonight that
Such a bizarrely stupid
it
conversation
will
if
be
you're
posted
people talk about
online
it
and
out loud.
in person.
Okay, so if a tenant makes a decision that they are not going to allow somebody in, what does that do to the landlord in terms of any fines? Is there a fine to the landlord or property owner if they're
I want to hear this answer.
Madam Chair, thank you.
Oh, you want to hear? Sorry.
No, that's fine. It's fine.
And what does that do to the landlord in terms of any fines? Is there a fine to the landlord or property owner if their tenant makes a decision not to let them in?
Through the chair, if we know that the landlord is being cooperative in allowing the city inspectors to enter other units, and we know that it is not a landlord issue, that we will not issue any fines. We will pursue the matter in housing court with the tenant.
Okay, so then what's the fucking problem,
Thank you.
landlords?
Councilor Bergman, do you have any
I'm all set.
other questions on the constitutionality?
Like that's the only
or
way
inspections?
that
For the
you
moment,
can
I'm
say
all
that
set.
it's
Thank you, Madam
unfair
Chair. Thank you.
is
Right.
if your tenant refuses to
You're
let you in, them in, and then you get
Councilor
fined
Russell.
for it. Well, that would at
Madam
least be an
Chair,
argument,
thank you
but that's
for
not the case.
recognizing me.
Have we
I just
identified a
wanna follow
single
up on the law
tenant that
department,
has said they wouldn't
questions
be,
that, Councilman
they wouldn't
Bergman
allow
asked.
an inspector to come into their building?
First
No,
of all,
and I'm sure there
dealing with
will be,
colleges. I
but you
understand
know,
that the college
like you're
dormitories and
like, don't
any,
let perfect be the enemy
lodging
of
house
good.
situations-
No, no,
know,
no.
like-
I'm just curious. I want to meet
I
that person.
represent-
Right.
College Hill, where Holy Cross is, and I know Holy Cross, for example.
I think it's much more likely that
single-family,
landlords
two-family,
try and
buildings
pressure
operate
their
just
tenants
like
not to let
any one
people
of these
in
landlords
Mm.
do.
and make it
Rent them out to
you
their
know,
staff,
but do it in a way that isn't that they can't get caught for.
personnel that are helping with.
They just
other
don't
than
pass the
giving,
consent form out.
uh,
They're like, my tenant won't sign it.
Right.
And would those be exempt, or are those already inspected? And then I remember using the example and asking a similar question of the previous code commissioner. And I used the example on Massachusetts Ave. There are two homes there that are occupied by two colleges. One is owned by WPI and one's owned by Holy Cross. They're basically tenant owned, tenant occupied. Are those included or are those not included? And if so, why? I think that this is the kind of thing about being fair across the board, that I understand the dormitories are already inspected, but I'm just wondering, why aren't we including all these, accessory kind of buildings that these institutions own? And the same, and I don't want to just pick on Holy Cross, because they could be said for any college. Even Worcester Academy owns a bunch of houses up on Union Hill, that kind of thing.
Mr. Horn, would you like to?
I don't think she's mentioned yet that they got
Through the chair, certainly. Counselor,
new ordinances.
single.
I think it comes
family,
up in a couple of
two-family
minutes,
dwellings
honestly, like 20 minutes into their talking.
Are not required to have a periodic inspection under the building code. So we're not going to be inspecting those. So if the college has single family and two families and they're renting them out. Under the building code, we will not be inspecting those every 5 years.
With all due respect, Madam Chairman, to my friend, the commissioner, that's not what this ordinance, the proposed ordinance says, because it says that any rental unit, including even condos, are included, unless that's changed in the draft. I haven't seen a draft.
That's pretty standard that
Through the chair,
counselors
so
are
we
allowed
walked in,
or
that's why
given
we're a little late today, but we walked in
privilege
some
to
changes
ask
supported
questions
by the
at
administration.
subcommittees that they're not on.
Yeah, that's just a longstanding practice.
Yeah.
They can't vote.
You can't vote.
but
Yeah.
They can ask questions if they want to. This is the moment right here, though. It doesn't come until like 2 minutes, I'd say, into George Russell's complaining.
It's not what this ordinance, the proposed
Watch
ordinance
this.
says, because it says that any rental unit, including even condos, are included, unless that's changed in the draft. I haven't seen a draft. I know some of the members of the committee have seen a draft, but I haven't seen a draft.
Through the chair, so we walked in, that's why we're a little late today, but we walked in some changes supported by the administration that will be exempting owner occupied, single family, two family, and three family.
Okay, but owner occupied single families were always exempt through you, Madam Chair. What was not exempt was tenant
occupied single families and two families and so forth. Are those still?
Councilor Russell, at the last,
That was the moment where they finally.
Can we go? Do we have anything at the beginning of them actually handing them the changes? Do you think if they were late coming in, do you think we got any of that?
Maybe.
If we go towards the beginning of the meeting.
I love that language of we walked in some changes.
Yeah.
That and just totally threw the administration under the bus too. I'm trying to click it on the screen. If we go to the beginning here, so where are we at? We're at 41 right now. Okay. Go all the way.
Development Committee meeting to order.
I wish there was like a scanning thing here.
I know.
That'd be sweet.
All right, so she's on the side right now, the lawyer. She's apparently handling the documents.
Right here. Yep. Wow, good catch, Brian.
Commissioner of Inspectional Services with us, David Horn. We also have Alexandra.
I'm curious to see what their reactions are when they get these pages.
Who is with us this evening.
She's literally spreading them out into 3 copies.
She's over here putting some documents together. We have Councilor Morris.
Did we know that their head of inspectional services left?
I didn't know that.
Russell.
No.
And clerking the meeting this evening is Claire Robbins. I would ask Claire, the clerk, to.
She's over here getting some documents together. She doesn't even say.
She's breaking the law right now. I'll give her a second.
The Acts of 2021, in order to ensure active public engagement, the City of Worcester currently allows for both in-person and remote participation at all City Council and Standing Committee meetings. To partake in the meeting, you may attend the meeting in person here in the Esther Howland Chamber at City Hall, or follow the link on the city's website via Zoom, or dial the direct line, which is 929-205-6099, access code 910-2676-6826.
I hope the screen does.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Moving on to 2A.
I'm very excited to see this handoff. I hope we don't get boned on public participation.
Councilor Fusillo?
Cam.
Yes. Councilor Toomey?
Yes.
And Chairperson Councilor Merrill Carlson?
Yes. We will be taking several items together this
I think we might
evening,
see it right here.
all to do with the rental registry.
Thanks for.
Item
I didn't
3A,
even bother to watch
transmitting
this. I just skipped ahead. So this
information
is very
relative
interesting.
to the
And we have a section
constitutionality
here.
of the rental
Hell yeah.
dwelling unit periodic
E-deception.
inspection ordinance. And then we will do 3B, which is recommend adoption of an amendment to the rental property registration program and residential rental unit periodic inspection
amendment
program ordinance.
On the agenda for that
Transmitting
is not what
information
she's passing out.
relative to an overview of the infrastructure and capacity.
That is
building
from
that was
April.
done to prepare for the launch of the rental registry.
Look at it right here.
And
Is it okay if I just pass these out right now and they're going to vote on them?
Informational communication
Yeah, that's
Looks
super
like-
legal. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, sure. No problem.
Yeah, no one pays attention or hold us
And
accountable.
the city's rental registry program. And then
She hasn't handed them off to them yet.
A, which is under miscellaneous petition of Arthur Meridian.
We gotta
and
see the
Michael
moment.
Paducah request City Council.
Here we go. All right, here we go,
request
everybody.
city manager sustain
Yeah, have the
rental
clerk do it.
registry and inspection program and schedule public hearings
Here,
relative
this
to
is
said
this isn't allowed. Here you go. Yep, we're not allowed to do this. So just take a look at that real quick.
there anyone in the audience?
Nico's
who would like
complicit.
to
Nico's complicit.
on this
Nico's
item?
complicit.
If
All
you'd
right,
like
never
Nico,
mind.
say
It's
it
all
ain't so.
It's all legal.
He's wearing a vest. It's okay.
Better be a bulletproof
On
vest.
the item, please do so by
You're a
stating
marked
your
man
name
now.
and city of residence.
Okay, so far Jenny's the only person that has looked at them.
Meridian, Worcester resident, and I'm a landlord, and I'm here to speak in opposition to this registry. The registry is more than a registry. It's more than giving your name to the city of Worcester, which they already have all this information. It's a duplication of effort. It's an expense that the city
can't
of Worcester
remember.
should not have to incur, since they have all this information.
If
They
this guy said
know
anything funny, but
who
we'll
the
let it ride.
landlord is, who the owner of different properties are. If perhaps they don't have a cell number or an emergency contact, I have no problem giving them that information, but they already have it. This initial flyer that was sent out when they were
So
introducing
your
the
issue is the
registry,
cost.
was very misleading in the first place. They say it's a registry, so you assume, okay, you're going to give your phone number and let them know you own the property. And apparently, it's been a lot more involved than that. They claim that this is going to help save people, and nothing could be further from the truth. This is not going to help save anybody. Common sense and good housekeeping, which is what should be promoted, that's what's going to save people. People should be able to
Does
take
you mean like
responsibility for their own
free
lives and their
subscriptions
own
to the
safety.
magazine Good Housekeeping
Everything should
are
not be
gonna
left
save
up to
lives?
the landlord. We're here to rent apartments in good, safe condition. We
Yeah.
check them as necessary.
How to make
Wait,
blueberry
how do
lemon
we
pumpkin.
how do we
Reality of
confirm
it
that?
is, the
In what
tenants have as much
in what way
responsibility
would
in
you
their
say
own
we should
safety
confirm that
as
you're
the
doing that?
landlords have. And I would just like to say through my own experience that when I have called the city and asked for support from
Listen,
a tenant
my
who was
picture's already
either
up at the post
a
office.
hoarder
I
You need to
don't
find
believe
me.
this.
could not keep an apartment
You have my
maintained,
name. You have my
they gave me
number.
virtually no help in resolving that matter. My only resolution was to evict the tenant, which is still the way it's going to be. So I'm against the registry being implemented the way it is. I don't think that there's enough protection in here for the owners of property.
Really, the
And
three
I
guys that
think
we've
what you're
seen together
doing
so
is
far
really
is
discouraging
just
people from buying
guys at
property
Honeydoo.
and
Honeydoo
investing in
guys.
the city of Worcester. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. No need to see any more of those public comments.
Yeah, we should revolt.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't know what else to say.
And then
So
here's one more moment you got to see. This is when Candy just reads off the document.
There were
in
7
public.
chairman's orders. If you'd like, I'm happy to read those 7 chairman's orders that this committee put forward, which some of those recommendations were also from someone such as yourself.
What?
So I don't know at this time, Madam Solicitor, if it makes sense for me to read these new changes, Chapter 9, Section 18, rental registry. Exemption of newly developed dwellings.
All right. So then she goes on to just read off of these 2 documents until she's done. And then we get to the vote, which happens at the 124 mark. And the way that Candy just sums all this up is just fucking awesome.
Your recommendations and the actual proposed ordinance and amendments.
Through the
Okay.
chair, that's sufficient to reference that.
Okay, thank you. So it would be my recommendation on 3B to make a recommendation approval of the accompanying proposed ordinance with the following amendments, of which that I had read earlier to the public. So that would be my motion.
Counselor Pasillo?
Yes.
Counselor
Lord.
Tom?
Jenny.
And Chairperson Counselor Merrill Carlson.
going to
Yes.
jail, kid.
Madam Chair, could you?
All right. We got to hear that sentence again.
The actual
My recommendation on 3B to make a recommendation approval of the accompanying proposed ordinance with the following amendments, of which that I had read earlier to the public.
along with the proposed ordinances of which that I had read earlier to the public, looks at the lawyer. Is this okay? The lawyer's like,
I don't know.
and then they voted unanimously through. I mean, obviously, it's just a subcommittee. It's not the biggest deal in the world, but it's pretty funny.
But I don't. It doesn't.
It's
the
now going.
The motion can't just. If you're introducing something like that, if you're making a motion, the motion has to be to introduce it, right? Like if you make a motion in the city council, I don't know.
Right.
I'm so fucking out over my skis. I don't know.
No, so you can't do the paper handoff of this thing. You can't do that.
Right. All right. I'm saying even the fucked up way they're trying to do it doesn't even track.
You can't do it. And she's trying to say that like she made chairman's orders that are similar to this updated ordinance, but that's not the same thing. This is like they literally scratched 2 whole parts of this ordinance, rewrote them entirely, and submitted that. This is the first time they're not even like public yet. I have the only available copies online right now, and it's going to a vote on Tuesday, and it's like it's just completely anti-democratic because like no one knows about these changes. And like I don't think it even got written about in the newspaper. So it's pretty slick or it's pretty stupid, basically.
I think I mean Etel was right. People need to show up to make public comments about a lot of different things this week, but people should touch on this that there was an open meeting violation in the subcommittee, and this shouldn't even be part of what is being voted on tonight.
A good question is, why did the subcommittee vote on an amendment that was literally physically passed out to them an hour before, right? Why did the subcommittee vote on an amendment that was not on the agenda, for which there could be no public hearing on? And Candy, it's so insulting at the end, that little bit about how she's like, that I read to the public. It's like, no, you didn't.
Can they, besides orders, can there even be anything on the agenda that isn't sent to them by city council?
That's a good question. They, no, I don't think so.
Okay, so that's not allowed to be voted on either.
They're yeah, right. Like, wouldn't that have to go through city council? I'll need to talk to somebody who knows this shit better than I do. But yeah, can you introduce an amendment like that in subcommittee? I don't know.
We should ask Tracy.
Yeah, Tracy would be a good person to ask about that. So yeah, I have that was just a little glimpse at the reporting work. I still have a lot of questions left to get nailed down on this one. But definitely going to write about this ahead of next week's meeting because it's just hilarious. And the rental registry, it was a nice idea for a couple months. And this is definitely a beautiful dream. This is for sure getting voted through. And I think Etel's point, the really funny detail in it about how we have no idea how many of our triple deckers are owner occupied because we don't have a registry.
Right.
And we just exempted our owner occupied. I mean, I guess you could figure out.
I guess, yeah. You just invert it, but
yeah, right.
Yeah, it's gross and weird and stupid, and it's
really
going to be very disappointing how many city councilors are very happy to destroy this thing before it even gets off the ground, because we constantly have fires in this city. We constantly have disasters in this city that are preventable, and not in a way that like, oh, the fire department could do better or something like that. No. We were literally talking about prevention, like changing the way that we protect people in this city, to stop these problems before they happen. It's you think that we've had enough of them. You think that we've gotten enough negative attention for it. And for one moment we did. One moment the scales tipped and they said we should do registration. And then real life came crashing in and everyone decided, whoa, I might not get money from developers or landlords if I go through with this. And once again, the people that we have elected to represent us are so disappointing. Somebody on Twitter, Wootown Woman on Twitter, responded to Etel's post about these, saying that, like, essentially a meme that said, like, the bar was on the ground and you still failed to reach it. And it's just how things go here. And it is, I'm not kidding you when I say it, like, I'm just so despondent at the state of, like, this. Rich people are just gonna kill us. Like, there's no other way for things to go. Like, rich people are going to kill us. They've already done it. It's done. It's just, now we're just living it out. And
you just kind of gotta laugh.
You know what?
There's, like, I don't know what to do about it.
If they were rich people that, like, legitimately outmaneuvered everybody, I might be okay. But this is some real dummy shit going on.
Right.
It's like,
that's what I mean. They just, like, there's enough credulous morons that are susceptible to, like, a sprinkle of money. It's not even real money that they sold us out for. It's
the most salient argument that came up tonight was the cost of stamp per bill.
Right.
And that was met with, how do you respond to somebody whose family member dies because they fell in a hole and it collapsed on them? Like, I don't even know what that was.
Tell them to get a different job.
just evidence of the most effective propaganda machine of all time. You got to give it up to the GOP, dude. Like, it's
not just them, dude. It's everybody.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's anti-politics, right? It's like just reflexively opposing the idea that, like, there are policies and that, like, you have responsibility to your society and, like, that can impact your bottom line.
Right. And they don't care. And like, they're just no, like, I don't know, like, there's no organizing around it. There's no convincing people that they're playing into it. There's nothing you can do. Like, it's like when Etel said it, it's the Mill Street is a microcosm of the entire planet. You can't convince anybody by any means, in any way, of anything. They're just fucking vibes based, man.
Then I would like to die on the dark side of the moon.
The vibes are kill everyone, destroy the planet, and because the argument for it is, well, it's a little cheaper to just kill the planet.
Right.
So
and we're literally incapable of any sort of large scale reform that would interfere with the ability to drive an F-250 to Daytona Beach from anywhere
into fucking Manhattan.
Right. Yeah.
No, we can't charge people $30. Rich people to drive into lower Manhattan. Not even all of Manhattan, just lower Manhattan, because economic times are hard.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And we'll just be fucked because of it. So whatever. And
that's something that's at least 50 to 70 years away from Worcester, right? Like congestion pricing, like that's never here. That will be dead by the time that Worcester ever sees something like that.
One can only hope, Bill.
God, and we'll never hear about it because we don't even have modern internet.
Right. Yeah, we can't even talk to our city councilor because Spectrum freaking fucks it up for us.
Right. The only thing we can do is donate money to the Worcester disaster relief fund, which I encourage everybody to do now, tomorrow, every day for the rest of your life, because the fire is coming for us all, and there's just nothing else we can do besides small acts of mutual aid. That is the best that we have to hope for. Yeah, man. I just like I can't even get into. I'm not even going to attempt to get into national politics at this point.
Yeah,
I'm not voting.
Just link me where I can bet on Donald Trump winning.
Yeah.
Like
Predictit.org. There you go.
Yeah.
Get in on that.
I will put $1 million on it right now. Yeah, fuck. I don't know. We got anything else to talk about? We got anything else to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
If Jenny is going to prison for this ethics violation, and we don't typically, does that mean Clementine will go to prison with her?
Clementine for jail, baby. 2024. Clementine for jail. That is a political idea I can get behind. That's all.
It was not the way I thought that was going to come to fruition, but here we are.
Get her in there. I would single-handedly clean up our streets if we just put Clementine in jail.
Yeah. Lock her up, baby.
Lock her. But you should see your emails, okay? Man, you should see the emails coming from. There's one other thing I wanted to talk about. Joey Chestnut banned from the Nathan's hot dog eating contest this year.
Really?
Did you guys hear about this?
No.
Yeah, he signed a $1 million sponsorship with Impossible Foods, and that's not allowed apparently by Nathan's. So they banned him from the hot dog eating contest this year. So Saturday afternoon, Ralph's parking lot. It's Heavy Metal parking lot. We're doing Worcester Hot Dog Safari Top Dog Eating Contest. We are trying to get him to show up.
Joey Chestnut, come on down.
Come on down. You can compete if you want, or just be a judge, or just make an appearance, do some commentary. Jeff Esper, who is now the favorite to win the hot dog eating contest at Coney Island this year, he already told us a month ago he wasn't able to come this year. He's very sorry that he can't come. So you can be our resident expert. On top of donating to the Worcester Disaster Relief Fund, I would like everybody to go on Instagram, Twitter, whatever social media you have, find Joey Chestnut, send him a message, and ask him, please, 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 to come to Ralph's Rock Diner on Grove Street in Worcester this Saturday, June 15th, and come hang out and lend some of his shine to the Top Dog Hot Dog Eating Contest. Everyone else should come to it as well. The Heavy Metal Flea Market is going to start up at 11 a.m. and be running until 3 p.m. The aforementioned Top Dog Hot Dog Eating Contest, free as well at 2 p.m. out on the patio. And then after that, Beyond Wrestling at 4 p.m. outside. The ring will be set up, and Glitter Boys for a dance party at the end of the night, 8 p.m. until ?
It's a stacked day.
It's going to be an insanely fun day. If you've been to any hot dog safari events before, especially in the last couple of years, then you've either seen it paired with wrestling or the Glitter Boys. And now it's both. You can get tickets for both for $30. Stay the whole day. It's going to be a blast. So come to that. Again, the Worcester Hot Dog Safari, all the hot dog safaris. I'm wearing the Naples Hot Dog Safari shirt right now. The inaugural Naples Hot Dog Safari event.
Naples? That's crazy.
Naples, Florida. They started one this year. These are all mutual aid events. They're designed to service food banks, community fridges, food pantries of all kinds. Personally, I don't know about the other hot dog safari boys, but I've decided that's the best I can do. Is if people need food, then I can hopefully help give them some.
It's not nothing.
It's not nothing. It is literally the best that I have. But we try and do a good job, and we want to do more. So come on down this Saturday. This event
It's
helps us put on the
my-
safari in August. So it's going to be a great day. Please come down. And just get, it's going to be the wrestling, Beyond Wrestling. If you've never been, fantastic. There's some great matches that are on the card. It's kind of some secret matches that people don't know about yet. Very exciting. And the Glitter Boys just do a great job. They do DJ sets, all vinyl, all dance. Cool. It's really fun.
I'm turning 33 at midnight.
Oh, maybe we'll have to. Maybe we have to make you crowd surf.
Oh boy, yeah, we'll see. We shall see.
So check that out. Next week, June 21st, Woot and Annie has another show. Our friend Andrew Mayer is going to Edinburgh Fringe this year with his one-man show, Have Fun, Be Yourself. He's one of the funniest guys in Massachusetts, in the world. We love him so much. We're very psyched to put the show on. He asked us if we would want to be involved, and no question at all. So June 21st at 8 p.m. at Ralph's Rock Diner. You can get tickets at the door if you want. You can also get them on our Eventbrite ahead of time. Just follow Woot and Annie Comedy on Instagram. You'll see the links in there. So come check that out as well. I know, Bill, we got the birthday party coming up on the 14th.
Yeah, that's this Friday. Come hang out. It's going to be fun. Redemption Rock. Just a chill, fun time.
We're taking back Flag Day.
We're taking it back. We're taking it back. We're turning it upside down. We're doing upside down Flag Day. Come on down.
The Alitos will be there then.
Yeah. We'll spit on you. It'll be great.
And again, as Bill mentioned before, this is going to be a fundraiser for the Worcester Disaster Relief Fund.
Yes, all the proceeds are going straight to that.
Hell yeah! Please follow this page, subscribe. We had a re-up tonight. Hadoken resubscribed, so thank you again. As a 5-month subscriber, we really appreciate that.
Thank you so much, sir.
We're at over 450 followers. We're trying to get to 500. So follow us and follow at WCT 3000 at Woot and Annie Comedy. Make sure that you are subscribed to billshaner.substack.com, worcestersucks.email, and follow at Worcester_sucks. Guys, thanks for hanging out with us tonight. This is a great time on a quiet night, and thank you again to Etel. Please, next week, call in, go if you can, if you have the ability, if you have the time, head down there, and yeah, we'll be here. So tune in after you do your public comments. Make sure you tune in, and we'll pump your tires because we're proud of you. So we're working on them. We're working on those. Father's Day bike ride on Mill Street on the GI Highway, which I now feel comfortable calling it that.
Yes.
Etel said it too.
I loved it when she said that.
That was amazing.
GI Highway.
So check it out. Thank you all again, and we will see you next Tuesday, everybody. We love you. Bye.